I spilled my tea on the CEO's son at 9:12 a.m. By 9:13, I was fired. It wasn't dramatic. No slow motion, no orchestra sting. Just a paper cup, a sharp corner, and a man who thought his last name made him untouchable. My name is Mila. I was 34 years old and, until that moment, a senior operations manager at Hartwell Systems. I'd been there 8 years. I built the reporting pipeline that kept the board calm. I fixed supplier messes before they became lawsuits. I was the person people called when things went wrong. Quietly, usually after hours. That morning, I was on my way to the lobby cafe to grab mint tea before a 9:30 meeting with an external investor. The meeting wasn't optional. I'd scheduled it weeks ago. The CEO himself had approved it and asked me to lead the walkthrough because, in his words, "You know the numbers better than anyone." I rounded the corner near the executive wing, scanning my notes on my phone when someone stepped out fast from a glass office. We collided. The lid popped. Tea splashed, warm, pale green across a navy suit jacket and crisp white shirt. For half a second, no one spoke. Then he looked down at himself. Slowly, like he was assessing damage to a luxury car. "Are you kidding me?" he said. I recognized him immediately. Chris Hartwell, the CEO's son, recently appointed Director of Strategic Growth. A title vague enough to mean anything and nothing. He'd been at the company 6 months, long enough to demand a corner office and short enough to still ask basic questions in meetings. "I'm so sorry," I said instantly. "That was my fault. I wasn't looking up. I'll get napkins." "Do you have any idea who I am?" he snapped. People nearby froze. 2 assistants stopped mid-step. A finance analyst pretended to check her phone. "Yes," I said calmly. "I do, and I'm really sorry. I'll pay for the cleaning." He laughed, short and sharp. "Pay? You think this is about money?" Tea dripped from his sleeve onto the marble floor. "You're always in the way." He continued, louder now. "Always rushing. Always acting like you own this place." That wasn't true. I was rarely in the executive wing. Today was different because I had a meeting with an investor. One Chris had skipped twice already. "I have a meeting in 10 minutes, I said, keeping my voice even. "I'll clean this up and—" "You don't tell me what you have," he cut in. "You don't tell me anything." He stepped closer. I could smell his cologne. Expensive, aggressive. "You're fired," he said. The words didn't land at first. My brain lagged like a delayed echo. "I'm sorry?" I said. "You heard me. Fired. Effective immediately." He raised his voice. "Security!" Heads turned. Someone actually gasped. "I don't report to you," I said, more reflex than strategy. "My role reports to—" "I'm the CEO's son," he shouted. "I can fire whoever I want." 2 security guards approached, confused but compliant. They knew me. I brought them coffee during late nights. One of them hesitated. "Sir," he said carefully, "Ms. Mila is—" "Out," Chris barked. "Badge. Now." My hands were shaking as I unclipped my badge and handed it over. 8 years, reduced to a piece of plastic. "Escort her," Chris said, already turning away. "And tell facilities I need this floor cleaned." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. Shock does that. You go quiet. I walked back to my desk with a guard trailing behind me, packed my laptop bag, my notebook, and the framed photo of my sister and me at her graduation. I didn't take much. I didn't have much that was personal. By 9:22, I was in the elevator heading down to the lobby. The investor meeting was scheduled for 9:30. I considered texting to cancel. Then I didn't. The doors opened to the lobby, cool and echoing. I stepped out, clutching my bag, heart still racing. That's when I saw him near the seating area by the windows. Jonathan Reed, private equity, major stakeholder. The reason the company had survived the last acquisition. The reason my meeting mattered. He spotted me and smiled. "Mila," he said warmly. "Ready for our meeting?" I swallowed. "I'm sorry." I said. He just fired me. Jonathan blinked. Once. Then he laughed. Not cruelly, not loudly. Just a soft, surprised chuckle. Did he? He said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen was already on. He held it up, tilting it toward me. A photo filled the display. Is this the guy who fired you? Jonathan asked. I looked at the screen. It was Chris, caught mid-rant. Tea-stained sleeve visible, mouth open, finger raised. And suddenly the day felt far from over. Jonathan didn't put his phone away. He studied the photo for a moment longer, then looked back at me, his expression no longer amused. It had sharpened into something deliberate. Come sit, he said, gesturing to the seating area by the windows. Before security decides this lobby is off-limits to you too. I hesitated. Technically, I was no longer an employee. But the guards at the desk didn't move. They were watching Jonathan, not me. Everyone did. I sat. Jonathan took the chair opposite mine, set his briefcase down, and crossed his legs calmly. I assume this firing happened just now? Less than 10 minutes ago, I said. Reason? I exhaled. I spilled tea on Chris. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. That's it? He said it was the final straw. I kept my tone factual. Emotional language wouldn't help. He didn't cite performance issues. No HR present, no documentation. Jonathan nodded slowly. That tracks. I looked at him. Tracks with what? 6 months of noise, he replied. Missed meetings, inflated projections, sudden authority he hasn't earned. I stiffened. You've noticed? I invest in companies, Jonathan said evenly. I notice when numbers stop matching behavior. He leaned forward slightly. You were supposed to walk me through the operational risk controls today. I specifically asked for you. Yes, I said. That's why I was in the executive wing. Jonathan smiled faintly. Chris told his assistant I canceled. My stomach dropped. You didn't. No, Jonathan said. I arrived early. I wanted to observe. That explained the photo. I saw him shouting, Jonathan continued. I didn't intervene, not yet. Why take the picture? I asked. Because men like Chris rewrite stories fast, he replied. Photos slow them down. There was a pause. The lobby felt too quiet. Did you know, Jonathan asked, that Chris signed off on a vendor contract last week without legal review? I blinked. That's not possible. Policy requires 2 approvals, Jonathan finished. Legal and compliance. Neither signed. My chest tightened. That contract exposes us to liability. Yes, Jonathan said. And when I asked about it yesterday, Chris told me you'd approved the workflow. That's false, I said immediately. I never saw it. I know, Jonathan replied. The metadata showed your name added after the fact. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. He used me as cover. He tried, Jonathan corrected, sloppily. I stared at the marble floor. 8 years of fixing problems quietly, and now I was being positioned as one. Jonathan watched me carefully. Did HR speak to you? No. Did anyone ask for your statement? No. Did they offer severance? I almost laughed. They escorted me out. Jonathan leaned back. That's a procedural failure, a significant one. I lowered my voice. What happens now? That depends, he said. On what you know. I met his gaze. I know operations, I know compliance. I know where shortcuts were taken because deadlines mattered more than policy. Were those shortcuts documented? He asked. Not officially, I said. But I raised concerns, more than once. To whom? The CEO, his father. Jonathan nodded. And? He told me to be flexible, that Chris was learning. Jonathan sighed. That's the problem with legacy companies. Nepotism wears the mask of patience. He checked his watch. I have a board call in 12 minutes. My heart skipped. About the company? Yes. I hesitated, then said it. He's not ready. Jonathan looked at me sharply. Chris? Yes, I said. And firing me won't fix that. Jonathan stood. Walk with me. We crossed the lobby together. Conversations died as we passed. I felt exposed, but oddly steady. Jonathan stopped near the glass doors. I'm going to ask for an internal review. Immediately. That won't go over well, I said. No, he agreed. It won't. He turned to me. But before I do, I need clarity. If I pull funding, the company destabilizes. People lose jobs. I know, I said. Most of them don't deserve that. Jonathan studied my face. Are you willing to document what you've seen? I didn't answer right away. My NDA echoed in my head. So did Chris's voice. You're fired. I need protection, I said carefully. And time. You'll have both, Jonathan said, if you're telling the truth. I am. He nodded. Good. The revolving doors spun as someone stormed out behind us. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Jonathan glanced briefly in that direction, then back at me. Go home, Mila. Don't answer calls. Don't respond to emails. And the meeting? I asked. He smiled thinly. It's already started. As he walked away, his phone buzzed. I didn't see the screen, but I knew whose name would be on it. I didn't go straight home. I walked. 3 blocks, then 5. I needed air before walls closed in around me. My phone buzzed constantly in my bag, but I didn't check it. Jonathan had been clear. Silence was leverage. By the time I reached my apartment, my hands had stopped shaking. That scared me more than the shock. Calm meant my brain was already switching into problem-solving mode. I unlocked the door, dropped my bag, and went straight to my desk. I hadn't stolen anything from the office. I hadn't needed to. For the past year, I'd kept my own records. Notes, timelines, screenshots saved to a personal encrypted drive. Not company data. Metadata. Observations. Patterns. The kind of thing you collect when something feels off, but you don't yet know why. I powered on my laptop. At 9:47 a.m., an email came in from HR. Subject line, exit documentation. I didn't open it. At 9:51, another buzz. A text from an unknown number. You don't want to do this. Call me, Chris. I turned the phone face down. Instead, I opened a folder labeled Vendor Approvals. Inside were PDFs I'd exported over months. Nothing proprietary. Just approval logs with timestamps. I'd noticed last fall that approvals were happening faster than policy allowed. Too fast. One name appeared repeatedly as final approver, Chris Hartwell. No legal sign-off. No compliance review. Just his digital signature inserted after the fact. At 10:08 a.m., my doorbell rang. I froze. Then my phone lit up with a call. Jonathan. I answered. I didn't send anything yet. I know, he said. I told you not to. Are you alone? Yes. Good. Listen carefully. The board authorized an external audit. My pulse spiked. Already? They didn't have a choice, Jonathan replied. Chris tried to block it. That made things worse. I exhaled slowly. What about his father? Quiet, Jonathan said, which is louder than yelling. I sat down. What do you need from me? Context, he said. Not files, not yet. I need to understand how this evolved without alerting legal prematurely. I can walk you through it, I said, but it won't be flattering. That's fine, Jonathan replied. Truth rarely is. We spoke for 20 minutes. I explained the structural changes Chris had pushed through. Centralizing approvals, limiting access, bypassing review layers temporarily. How temporary had become permanent. How people who asked questions were reassigned. Did anyone resign? Jonathan asked. Yes, I said. 2. Compliance and procurement. Names? I gave them. I'll follow up, he said. Anything else? I hesitated. Then, he started controlling information flow. Jonathan went silent. He removed me from certain distribution lists, I continued. Investor-facing reports, claimed it was to streamline communication. That explains discrepancies, Jonathan said. He was curating the narrative. Yes. At 10:41, the call ended. At 10:43, my phone exploded. Calls, emails, Slack notifications I no longer had access to, somehow still pinging my phone. I checked voicemail once. Big mistake. Mila, this is HR. We need to discuss the circumstances of your termination immediately. Delete. Another. This is legal. Failure to cooperate may. Delete. Then a different voice. Mila, a woman said softly. It's Claire, from finance. I paused. Claire had been quiet, smart, careful. I shouldn't be calling, she whispered. But I wanted you to know, they're scrambling. My chest tightened. How? Chris locked the server room, she said. It is furious. The audit firm is on site. I closed my eyes. He's saying you manipulated workflows, she continued, that you had access others didn't. Did anyone believe him? I asked. Claire laughed once, humorless. Not really. He doesn't know how the systems actually work. That was Chris's weakness. He took shortcuts without understanding infrastructure. He didn't know that audit logs don't lie, that approvals leave fingerprints. Mila, Claire said, voice shaking. They asked me to backdate a reconciliation. My jaw clenched. Did you? No, she said quickly. I said I needed documentation. Good, I replied. Don't sign anything. Don't touch anything. I won't, she said. I wanted you to know. After the call, I sat still for a long moment. At 11:12, my phone buzzed again. Text message. You're destroying everything. You think Reed will save you? Call me now. I typed once, then erased it. Instead, I forwarded the message to Jonathan. At 11:26, a news alert popped up. Hartwell Systems Board announces independent review, following leadership dispute. That was generous. By noon, my email inbox filled with LinkedIn messages. Recruiters, former colleagues, people sensing blood in the water. I ignored all of them. At 12:18 p.m., Jonathan called again. Chris's access has been suspended, he said. I closed my eyes. That fast? He tried to delete files, Jonathan added. It caught it. A slow, steady calm spread through me. Not relief, resolution. What happens next? I asked. Jonathan paused. Now, he said, the story stops being his. I looked at my desk, at the notes I'd kept, the patterns I'd seen long before anyone asked. Jonathan, I said, if this goes public... It will, he interrupted. I don't want a headline war, I finished. I want accountability. That's the right instinct, he said, and it's exactly why he underestimated you. When the call ended, my phone finally went quiet. For the first time that day, I allowed myself to sit back. Chris had fired me because he thought power was loud. He was about to learn what quiet preparation does when the lights turn on. By the next morning, the company felt like it belonged to someone else. I knew because my phone stayed silent. No more threats. No more frantic voicemails. No more urgent requests from departments that had ignored me for years. Silence, in corporate terms, usually means control has changed hands. At 7:42 a.m., Jonathan called. The board met until midnight, he said. His voice sounded tired but steady. Chris is officially removed from all operational authority. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a mug I hadn't touched. Temporarily? Jonathan didn't answer right away. No, he said finally. Permanently. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. And his father? Still on the board, Jonathan replied. But sidelined. He didn't fight it. That part hurt more than I expected. Not because I liked the CEO, but because it confirmed something I'd suspected for years. Silence is also a choice. "What happens to me?" I asked. "You're not an employee anymore," Jonathan said, "but you're also not the problem. Legal agrees." I closed my eyes. "That's not the same as protection." "No," he agreed, "which is why we need to be precise." An hour later, I was on a secure video call with external counsel, Jonathan, and 2 board members I'd barely spoken to before. Faces I'd seen in quarterly meetings but never addressed directly. They were polite, formal, careful. "We want to understand your role," one of them said, "and your concerns." "I documented process gaps," I replied. "I escalated risks. I followed policy." "And when policy was bypassed?" "I objected," I said. "And I was excluded." There was a pause. "Do you have evidence?" another board member asked. "Yes," I said, "but I haven't shared it yet." Jonathan nodded slightly on screen. "We're not asking you to," he said. "Not today." That mattered. Pressure would have felt like manipulation. This felt cautious. After the call ended, Jonathan stayed on. "They're scared," he said. "Of lawsuits?" I asked. "Of exposure," he corrected. "Investors are nervous. Employees are watching. This is about optics now." I leaned back in my chair. Chris always cared about optics. "And ignored infrastructure," Jonathan said. "That's why this unraveled fast." At 11:15 a.m., my phone buzzed with a calendar invite. Subject: Investor Briefing, Revised Host, Jonathan Reed. Attendees: Board, Legal, Audit Firm Optional, Mila Optional. That was new. "Do you want me there?" I asked Jonathan. "Yes," he said without hesitation, "but not to speak." "To observe," I guessed. "To be seen," he corrected. I dressed carefully. Not formal, not casual, neutral, credible. I didn't want attention. I wanted presence. The building felt different when I walked in. Quieter, tighter. Security nodded but didn't smile. People whispered instead of staring. Chris wasn't there. In the conference room, Jonathan stood at the head of the table. Screens displayed timelines, process charts, approval flows. Not accusations. Structures. "This isn't about one individual," Jonathan said to the room. "It's about governance failure." I recognized my work in the slides. Cleaned up, contextualized. No one said my name, but I felt it hovering. Questions came fast. How did this go unnoticed? Why weren't controls triggered? What did compliance report? Jonathan answered calmly. When he didn't know, he said so. At one point, a board member glanced at me. "Ms. Mila, you worked closest to operations. Did you ever flag concerns?" I met his gaze. "Yes," I said, "multiple times." "To whom?" "Leadership," I replied, "with documentation." The room went quiet. "Thank you," he said. "That's all." When the meeting ended, no one lingered. No small talk, no jokes. Jonathan walked me to the elevator. "They'll release a statement this afternoon," he said. Neutral language. Internal review, no names yet. "And Chris?" I asked. "He's been advised to retain counsel," Jonathan said. "He won't contact you again." I believed him. As the doors closed, Jonathan added, "There's something else." "What?" "I've been asked to recommend an interim operations advisor." I laughed once, surprised. "You already have consultants." "I do," he said, "but none who understand this company's blind spots like you." I looked at him. That would put me back in the middle. "Yes," he said, "with protection and leverage." I didn't answer immediately. "I need time," I said. "Of course," Jonathan replied, "but think about it." That afternoon, the statement went public. Hartwell Systems announces leadership changes amid internal review. No accusations, no blame. But the market reacted anyway. By close, the stock dipped. Not catastrophic. Yet. At 6:03 p.m., I got one last message. Unknown number. You think you won? I stared at the screen, then blocked it. Chris had thought power came from shouting. He hadn't understood what happens when the room stops listening. And for the first time since the tea spill, I knew exactly where this was heading. 3 weeks later, Hartwell Systems looked intact from the outside. The logo was still on the building. The website still promised innovation and stability. Press releases spoke about renewed commitment to governance. From a distance, you could almost believe nothing had happened. Inside, everything had changed. I accepted Jonathan's offer to return, not as an employee, but as an independent interim operations advisor, contracted directly through the board. Fixed term, clear scope, legal protection written in language so precise it left no room for interpretation. Chris was gone. Not officially announced, but erased. His access terminated. His title removed from internal directories. His office cleared quietly after hours. His father remained on the board, though diminished. He no longer spoke first. Or last. On my first day back, no one clapped. No one whispered. People simply nodded as I passed. Respect looks different when it's earned under pressure. I didn't take my old desk. I worked out of a small conference room with glass walls. Transparency mattered now. The audit findings came in waves. Vendor contracts approved without oversight. Expense accounts misclassified. Internal transfers justified with vague descriptions. None of it dramatic alone. Together, undeniable. I didn't lead the investigation. I didn't need to. My role was simpler and harder. Explain how it had been possible. This wasn't one bad actor, I told the board during a closed session. This was unchecked authority combined with willful blindness. No one argued. The regulators arrived a week later. Calm. Methodical. They asked for timelines. I gave them facts. They asked for context. I gave them process. Chris's name came up often. Mine didn't. That was the difference between noise and credibility. On a Thursday afternoon, Jonathan asked me to stay after a meeting. They're preparing a settlement, he said. Civil penalties. Leadership restructuring. And Chris? I asked. Jonathan exhaled. He won't work in this industry again. I nodded. I felt no thrill. Just closure. What will you do next? He asked. I'm done here, I said. Once the transition plan is finalized. You could stay, Jonathan offered. Permanent role. Authority this time. I shook my head. This place needs fresh trust. I'd always be part of the old story. He studied me, then smiled. I expected that answer. On my last day, I packed nothing. I had learned the lesson once. I walked through the floors slowly. People stopped me, not to gossip, but to say thank you. Quietly. Sincerely. Claire from finance hugged me in the hallway. You changed how things work, she said. No, I replied. You did. You just didn't think you could. In the lobby, I paused near the cafe where everything had started. I ordered mint tea. I smiled at the irony and didn't spill a drop. As I turned to leave, I saw him across the street. Chris. No suit. No entourage. Phone pressed to his ear, pacing. He looked smaller somehow. Less certain. He didn't see me. I didn't stop. Revenge doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like being irrelevant to the person who tried to break you. That evening, Jonathan called. They approved the final report, he said. Your name is clean, publicly and privately. Good, I replied. There's something else, he added. I'm starting a new portfolio company. Smaller, tighter controls. I want you to consult on the structure. I smiled. Send me the details. After the call, I sat on my balcony and watched the city settle into night. Cars, lights, people moving forward, unaware of the quiet collapses and rebuilds happening all the time. Chris had shouted, "Do you even know who I am?" I did. And now no one needed to ask.